Hello everyone and welcome to Shard TCG. My name is James and right here, right now, we're going to be looking at the top 10 card art for set 1 of Shard TCG. And we're starting in at number 10, the Demerix. Now the Demerix has a really simple design, but in my eyes it had to be in the top 10. I wasn't sure where to put it, number 10 or number 1 as a joke. So I thought I'd kick off the video with it. I know the Demerix doesn't have a great level of detail, but it's its pose, it's its face, it has anger, it has fury, it's got a story to tell there. More people have analysed this card than other cards. And the reason I think the Demerix gets talked about more is because when you go with a simpler design, you can afford to be more expressive. So the emotion behind the Demerix in this art is perhaps more plain for everybody to see compared to other Shard cards. Okay, and at number 9 we have Feast on the Fallen, our first spell card of the video. Now I like this art for the full scene. It's the back of a cobblestone dark alleyway, the back door open perhaps to an old inn shop or something like that. And you come across these giant rats just feasting on what looks like an Epion, which in Shard is a giant bat, if you're not aware. Now, as a rule of mine, I don't like to go too gory, unless the picture requires it to. Now, this one I've kept it still quite tamed, I believe. But in the future, I would like to challenge myself a bit more with some gorier type cards, or not necessarily gory, but more shock factor. But I feel as a rule you have to be quite reserved with how many times you go for the shock factor, because if you're constantly trying to surprise people, then they're just going to become desensitized by it. So I feel in set 1 there's 1 or 2 cards that are quite shocking, and in set 2 there will be 1 or 2 more. And at number 8 we have the Lacid, and the reason I really like this one is for the atmosphere of the card. The green mist going around it, it's just a slight mystery. It's climbing over a rock. I think it's coming out of the ocean, you know, on a dark foggy night when the fog settles on top of the ocean, and it might have like a green mysterious glow. This Lacidon's just crawling over the rock. And I think for that feeling that it gives me alone, it had to be in the top 10. Some other card arts further down the video will be more detailed, of course, but I just really wanted to point out some of these arts for reasons beyond just plain detail. Alright, and at number 7 we have the Hydra, and with this art you could really work with multiple poses, obviously because the Hydra has multiple heads. So the first Hydra that I drew was the one in the center that is looking straight at the card holder, and I think you can tell he has some strong intent to do some damage. Following that we have Hydras looking in different directions, and I think this art is quite good to show a more 3D aspect of the Hydra, as you can see it from different angles, you can see how the head varies. And of course the scene as a whole, we've got like a blood red sky, which really helps contrast the rain that's pouring down on top of the Hydra. We've got the thrashing waters, which really describes the mood of the Hydra that it's giving off right now. It's unsettled, it's aggravated, the thrashing waters. And subconsciously, I believe this all comes through when you play the card. You feel like this Hydra is ready to fight. So this definitely has to be one of my top 10s. And as I've described it now, I feel like it should have been higher up on the list. Okay, and we have the Zafin. We're going back to a more simplistic card, but what I really enjoy about the Zafin is the fusion of the horror and cartoon aspect of it. See, when you look at the skull and it has those protruding teeth, they are quite cartoonish. Yet I still feel as if there is enough realism there that if I saw this in real life, I would be quite scared. And when I went to draw the spine, instead of bending it side to side, I had to try to come towards the audience a bit, like how a spine would naturally curve, and I always like that part of the Zafin as well. And because the Zafin has that acid glow to it, perhaps it seems lazy from another person's point of view, but I felt like it had to have a strong black background to really highlight the aura of sheer horror that it is giving off. I mean, just imagining this emerging from the shadows. You hear the sizzling of the stone beneath it as the acid drips down. And when it reaches out towards you, you know it has ill intent. That is what I really wanted to bring out in this card. Okay, and we're on to number 5, and this one is the Manticore. Now, if we're looking at this creature purely design-wise, I think those wings are perfect. I've drawn quite a few skeletal and draconic wings, and I have to say the Manticore's wings have came out looking the best for me. Now, this Manticore still has that classic Manticore design. You can clearly identify it as a Manticore, but I do feel as if I've changed it enough so that it has that unique shard feel to it. One of the main changes I like is the huge green mane. It doesn't just stop around its head like a lion's mane would. It goes right back to the back and it just covers its back. And something you may already know about me is that I love depth in pictures, and I love the way the tail just comes around in front of the Manticore, and you can see the tail as it slowly grows bigger as it's getting closer to your point of view. And before we move on to the next card, I would just like to ask people to please leave a like, and if they haven't already, subscribe if they want to see more videos like this. I already have one other top 10 video, and I do plan on making more for categorizing shard cards in different ways and giving a variety of shard cards their own little time in the spotlight. Okay, at number 4 we have Golem Forge. Now, I really like this one. This one took me a whole day to make, and I know it doesn't look too complicated, but there's reasons why it took so long. Now, I know just looking at the picture on face value, it doesn't look as if it would take any longer to do than any of the other card arts. But it was a combination of a 0-point reference and the multiple light sources that made this card take a little bit longer to do than most others. Because as you can see, we have the liquid mana being poured into the golem. So we have the blue glow that spreads around the room that way. But we also have this yellowish glow coming from multiple corridors that leak into the room and blend the blue and the yellow together. And then we have the corridors themselves and the tile work blending into that 0-point reference down the end of the hallway. So it really creates a sense of extreme depth coming from that one point that emerges from the center of the card and just reaches out to all the corners. And at number 3 we have the Rana Tetra, and the reason that the Rana Tetra stands out to me is because it was the first card where I used white lines instead of black lines to draw this creature. Now, I know that doesn't sound too special or too important, but it was to explore a new concept with Void, because as you know, the idea of Void is that it's absorbing and it eats everything and it becomes nothing, therefore Void. But to draw the Rana Tetra with white lines and you can see the light around it, it doesn't feel so much that it is a white glow, but that it is absorbing the light. So everything around it is dark and you're just seeing the last of the light as it's taking it in. It's not projecting the light per se. Of course, some would have to for you to observe it. That is what I was trying to bring across with this card, that it isn't constantly radiating light, but constantly absorbing light. And not just light exclusively, but everything, because that's what void creatures do. So to recap, the reason this card was in the top 10 is because I was exploring something new and different artistically. And here at number 2 we have Impose Will. Now, this card has always been one of my favourites, and it is because of the same reason as a lot of other cards. It shows the depth. With the way the summoner is posed, you really get the sense of depth. As the runic symbols that have been casted by the summoner grow larger and larger, it feels almost invasive, as if the next runic symbol is going to take up the whole picture. Which I think is a good mood to set with Impose Will, as it is an invasive spell. You're taking control of your opponent's monster. You want that spell to look as if it's coming out and consuming the space within the card. And hopefully your opponent senses that same feeling as it's coming out and it is invading their territory. It's taking one of their cards. So I really hope that this art has come across as a good portrayal of what the card effect is trying to do. And at number 1 we have Winding Winds. And this card art, out of all of set 1, is my absolute favourite. And once again we take away the complexity. It's not nearly as detailed as Impose Will or Golem Forge, but it's just a simple silhouette. And what I love about silhouettes is it allows the beholder to view that art and they fill in the gaps. This is an excellent technique to learn with art, is to just allow the viewers of that art to fill in the gaps. This is one block piece. It's just plain black, mono black, one block piece shaped to look like a tree. Yet when I look at it, I feel it being 3D. I can see it. I can see the branches bending past each other, and I can feel the wind as it blows across. I can see all the leaves scattered in the sky. I can see all that, and it's more detailed than what is actually there, because my mind knows what to look at. It goes, this is a tree, and I can see the whole of the tree in my mind, and then I set the sky from top to bottom to be this beautiful light shade of pink that just naturally blends into this lovely pale peach at the bottom. You know, because people get tired of blue skies, we want to see some beautiful bright colours sometimes. And when you create hundreds of pieces of card art, you run the risk of becoming repetitive. And it is nice to just change things up. That's another reason why this is one of my favourites. It is so different from my other card arts. And for me personally, if I could frame any one of my card arts up on the wall, it would be this one. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to say it again, please remember to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the Discord, we have a really great community there. And I hope to see you next time.